recognize her. No, I didn't know her before. I didn't know her before the class. Here. Around 29. 1 minute. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't recognize, you know, these nights, Kim, I don't recognize a lot of the people here. Isn't that amazing? We still don't have a big crowd, but I think it's interesting that you're giving a good crowd for a whole set of people.
We'll pick up steam, over the next couple of months.
Yeah. Let's just, let's see what we get.
Anytime.
Okay, ready? Yep.
It's 9:30. I hereby call this meeting to order. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll observe a moment of silence. Thank you. We have a proclamation in celebration of Georgia Cities Week 2024, and I'm going to take the podium. Georgia Cities Week is celebrated and led by GMA, the Georgia Municipal Association, in honor of the fact that cities are important and deserve to be highlighted. The majority of residents of the state of Georgia live in cities, and Peachtree City celebrates Georgia Cities Week in a number of ways. We're pushing this out, recognition and acknowledgement through our social media. We're hosting PTC 101 this week, another installment in a series of classes to highlight the way we run our city and acquaint our citizens with our staff and our operations. We also have a coloring contest if anybody is interested. So with that, the Georgia Cities Week proclamation, whereas city government is the closest to most citizens and the one with the most direct daily impact on its residents. And whereas city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and understanding of its many responsibilities. And whereas city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along their understanding of public services and their benefits. And whereas Georgia Cities Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives. And whereas the Georgia Municipal Association and its member cities have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information. And whereas Georgia Cities Week offers an important opportunity to convey to all the citizens of Georgia that they can shape and influence government through their civic engagement. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the mayor and council of the city of Peachtree City that the week of April 21st through 27th, 2024 is hereby proclaimed Georgia Cities Week. And all citizens, city government officials, and employees are encouraged to do everything possible to ensure that this week is recognized and celebrated. So signed, Kim Leonard, Mayor, and the members of the Peachtree City Council on this 18th day of April, 2024. So let's clap for our cities. Thank you. And with that, I'll call the next agenda item. We have a presentation from the police department regarding our CALIA. Chief Moon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We are awake. It's so nice to see so many in the audience today for our first morning meeting and some different faces, so welcome. So Mayor and Council, we received our accreditation award. I put together a little presentation because I thought maybe it's been so long some people may have forgotten why this is important. So I'm going to try to run through this real quick before we get to the presentation. CALIA, we say CALIA because Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies is a mouthful. So we shortened it down to the acronym of CALEA. It was created in 1979 by 4 founding organizations. It was the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Sheriff's Association, and the National Association of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and the Police Executive Research Forum. The purpose was to develop professional best practices standards to enhance delivery of police services to citizens in the community they serve. You're going to hear delivery of services a lot in this presentation because that's what it's all about. It's to serve you, our citizens, in the community in the most professional manner we can. And these standards are continuously reviewed to make sure they remain current and relevant. So the standards that we have today are much different than the standards that came out in 1979 and even 30 years ago. So they're always evolving. Now, CALEA is also governed by a 21-member commission composed of police safety leaders, academians, state and local officials, judicial officials, and other subject matter experts. I am honored and very humbled that I actually serve on this 21-member commission as a current CALEA commissioner, and I'm in my 2nd year on the commission, and it's been quite an honor to represent Peachtree City on the national level. CALEA ensures that standards dynamically consider the changes in the professional law enforcement environment. So when we saw the social unrest and all the things that the police reform wanted us to do, CALEA was already ahead of that. And if you were following best practices, you were already doing a lot of the things that reform was asking you to do. This includes consideration for legal findings and updates, case law, emerging evidence-based practices and research, technological advancements, and the importance of ongoing community engagement. We're actually having to look at standards now. You talk about artificial intelligence. Who would have thought we had to look at implementing standards for police, practices with artificial intelligence? When I started 39 years ago, we had a ticket book, we had a radio, and we had reports. Now we have computers and all sorts of things that are going on in that car, So everything that we do in law enforcement is covered by the standards. It is a voluntary process, if you weren't aware of that. So not everybody wants to do it. It establishes a foundation within public safety agencies that focus on achieving the best outcomes, once again, in delivery of services. Consistent internal and external review combined with a third-party validation of an agency's policies and procedures is critical in delivery of high-quality public safety services and promotes accountability. So what that means is we open up our doors and we let outside independent observers come in and assess us. Annually, they were reviewing our files, and every 4 years they come and do an on-site assessment. And you have to have a lot of confidence in your staff, and I'm very pleased with the professional officers we have that it makes it easy for us to do this. CALEA is committed to providing accreditation as a foundational managerial tool and delivery of professional public safety services that complies with constitutional provisions, the rule of law, the democratic principles of policing, and public safety without regard for political influence or persuasion. We try to stay atypical and aneutral because we serve all the citizens all the time. Not many law enforcement agencies in the country want to put themselves through this challenging review and open their agencies up because they don't want people to come in and see what they're doing. We are an advanced law enforcement accreditation department, which means we subscribe to the 461 standards prescribed by CALEA that are applicable by our size or by our function. CALEA has 2 levels. There's a tier 1 that has 180. Our sister city in Fayetteville achieved that last year, but we have been an advanced law enforcement accredited program for over 30 years. So that's 461 standards. It requires a continuous review of the policies and procedures and the requirements to provide documentation necessary to prove compliance with those standards. They cover a wide range of administrative, operational, logistical issues and serve as a modern management model that provides the framework for recognizing professional excellence within public safety. The fundamental question I always ask someone, would you send your child to a school that was not accredited? Would you go to a hospital that didn't have accreditation? Why should your public safety be any different and try to strive for excellence? I know a lot of people come to Peachtree City, the first thing they do is research our schools to make sure we have good schools, good accreditation, and those sorts of things. So this just enhances that. Like I said, we've been accredited initially since 1992. We have just received our 10th meritorious accreditation under the gold standard assessment. That is huge. That is a long time to be doing that, and that is a testament to the men and women in our organization that has been doing this for so long. To give you an example, there's approximately 18,000 agencies in the United States. only 789 are accredited through CALIA. Out of over 650 throughout the state of Georgia, only 29 hold CALIA accreditation. To me, that's huge. So you're asking, as a citizen, why do it? What's the benefits of CALIA? Well, it increases integrity, transparency, and accountability. We collect a lot of data, we collect a lot of statistics, we do a lot of analysis. We're constantly reviewing our processes, so hopefully we can pick up on trends, patterns, or problems while they're small before they become large. Increased community advocacy. Community engagement is huge. We cannot do our job without you in the community. Support from our government officials. Hopefully they know we're subscribing to the best practices, and it continues the support that they give us, whether it be through funding or resource allocation and those sorts of things. Stronger defenses against lawsuits. If something were to happen, the first thing they ask us is, what is your policy? What is your procedure? Mr. Meeker, I'm sure, is happy about that because he always knows we have policy and procedure that governs the majority of the things we do. This is where it comes in for you, is reduced risk and liability exposure. You're going to hear from the fire chief in just a moment about how we're ISO Fire Class 1, how it saves, and you write your check for your fire insurance annually out of your personal budget, right? So you see that savings. Well, you see a 20% reduction in our liability insurance, but it's paid through our general fund, so it's through your millage rate, but you do have a savings there, so it does benefit us. And ultimately, it's greater accountability within the agency. Once again, so hopefully we can identify trends, practices, and problems before they become a big issue. And you're probably wondering, who's the quarterback of all this system? Keeping up with 461 standards, providing the documentation, building the compliance, staying after me to say, Chief, sign the reports. You haven't done this. You need to review this policy. It's time for this. Our quarterback is Lieutenant Kay Crider, and I'm going to call her up. Kay did an outstanding job keeping me in line these last 4 years. So this is a certificate of appreciation to Kay Crider as an expression of gratitude for your contribution to the law enforcement accreditation program as accreditation manager. I appreciate everything you've done. You did a wonderful job. Mayor, officers, would y'all like to come up too? Officer.
Could I have council members come up
Absolutely.
too? Would that be
Whatever
okay?
you want.
Anything we did to support this was from the entire city council, and I would appreciate it if you could include everybody, if you would please. Anywhere, everywhere. Everywhere.
Thank you, sir. So in my dual hat as a CALIA commissioner and as the police chief, I'm going to make this presentation to the mayor, council, and to the officers for a job well done. Be it hereby known that the Peachtree City, Georgia Police Department, having fully demonstrated its voluntary commitment to law enforcement excellence by living up to a body of standards deemed essential to the protection of the life, health, and safety and rights of the citizen it serves, and having exemplified the best professional practices in the conduct of its responsibilities, is hereby, upon recommendation of the members of the commission, awarded the Certificate of Advanced Accreditation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well done. You got that?
Thank you.
Presentation B, Peachtree City Fire and Rescue, ISO Class 1 presentation. Chief Murphy.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
I'm Clint Murphy, I'm the fire chief. I am going to be talking to you this morning about our ISO classification rating that was conducted last year. We finally got the report, and I want to show you what went on in the report and how the future looks for us. So with that being said, let's jump right in. So our mission statement for the fire rescue is committed to providing quality emergency services through community education, prevention, and effective emergency response. So the first two parts of that we focus on heavily. We focus on community education and prevention because we want to prevent an emergency. So you're going to see through this report how we do that and some of the things that we try to strive to do. So what is ISO? Everybody goes, it's one of those acronyms, kind of like CALIA. ISO is Insurance Service Office, and it is a rating that is done on fire services throughout the United States. So a Class 1, what that means is we're part of 1% of the fire departments in the United States that are recognized at this class. So the class is based off of the Public Fire Protection Classification Standards, and I'm going to show you those in just a second. But the basis of this is that we're not in this alone. The emergency communications takes up 10% of this, which is 911. The water supply takes up 40%, and then you can see 50% of it is all on us. So the thing that I want to kind of point out, and I want to kind of give you a different way of looking at, you see that up there, it says divergence points. Divergence points are penalty points, is probably the best way to explain it. So if the water supply and the communications centers all do better from one classification to the next, and say the fire department doesn't do better, they give you penalty points for not moving in the same rate together. So you'll see that when we go forward. I'll show you how that played into this. So this is actually our rating. You can see the emergency communications there at the top, water supply, fire department. You see the divergence, and then you see community risk. Okay, so this is based on a 100-point scale, and then you have 5.5 bonus points. So I'm going to go through that, and I'm going to explain how we got each one of these. Okay, so you can see in the first column the credit available, then what we got in 2016, and then what we got in 2024. So you see each one of those, and okay, so the water department went up. Sorry, emergency communications went up, water department went up. We went down by 5 points. Okay, so that means we were assessed 3 penalty points. Okay, and I'm going to explain why throughout the rest of this presentation, why we wound up there and what we've already done to correct it. And I want you to know throughout this whole presentation, we're still an ISO Class 1. We didn't lose anything. Just because we lost points didn't mean we lost anything throughout this. So let's jump into that. So the 3 main areas where we did not get as many points as we could was under ladder service, which means our ladder trucks that are positioned throughout the city. The next one is deployment analysis. What that means is where are your fire stations? The third one is personnel. You have to have personnel in order to run fire stations and run those ladder trucks. So those are the areas that we dropped on points, and I'm going to talk to you about those. So currently, the first thing is our current deployment of ladders. So you look at the current stations 81 through 84. We have station 81 has our single ladder truck in it, and it covers a 2.5-mile radius under ISO. So you see all of the white border that is not covered by an area. That doesn't mean that we can't drive there. It just is, that's their rating, that you can be there in 2.5 miles. Their suggestion, or not their suggestion, their recommendation or requirement is that we had 3. We also had an outside assessment done by an aerial evaluation company that was helping us, 1, with purchase of a new aerial, and 2, with where they should go. They all agreed. And this is what it should look like. Now, I know how much this cost. This is not an easy ask. Part of this is already in the process. We asked to order a new aerial based on their assessment that we got for one to go on the south side, and we're going to move the other one to the north side. That was based off the assessment, and that will provide us the most coverage for the citizens in the city. We look at this as what is the most practical way to provide service to you. So we've already made that purchase, and we were working towards putting that into practice going forward. That will gain us more points on the next time that they come. So we already know that we need those services. So that's the latter portion of this. Next thing we're going to talk about is the deployment. This is currently where our deployment of stations are. You can see all the colors that cover, they do this by 1.5 miles instead of 2.5 miles. And our objective here is to cover all of those areas, and we can't cover all of it. We would never, land doesn't work like that, and roads don't work like that. So we try to cover the most we can with the road frontage that we have and where we place the stations. So this is what they're saying, and we say is ideal, okay? So you see a new station put in the north and a new station put in the south. We're already working on that. Yeah, you voted for that in SPLOST. So they're already in process and already planned for the future. So that's where this is. Now, why do we need them? So I thought these aerials and pictures kind of provide a really good reason practically why we're asking for fire stations. Okay, so if you see the top up there where the dirt road is, that is McDuff starting at Centennial in 2016. The aerial next to it is the woods that was there in 2015, 2016. And now you can look at the bottom. This is at 400 feet with a drone, and you can see the houses go on from there. Next to it, we just did Crestwind. We didn't do Everton. We didn't do any of the townhomes, any of that stuff. So Crestwind alone has, I think it's 793 homes in it, and they have almost 100 more homes to put in. Everton is very close to that. And the townhomes, there's probably another 60 or so townhomes that are going to that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a small city in our city. Most places have a fire station for this many residents. So that's why we're going to put one there. We're working on that. Okay? So this is the north. Let's talk about the south. So this is Mill Farms and the gates. So you can see the lower corner there where it says 2015. There are 5 horse farms where the mill farms are. There are going to be 74 homes there coming in the future. You can see that right there where they've already laid it out in the 2024 picture. The other thing that you notice is the gates there. There's maybe a quarter of it done, and now you can see where it's complete. So we've added a lot of homes to that. So the other one that, going to the next one I want to show you, this is Summerby. We frequent Summerby every day for EMS service, okay? So just because I'm talking about fire stations for fire protection, they have ambulances in them too. We're just talking about fire today because that's what ISO does. But if you look down there, it's only half done. It's now complete on this side of the road. They actually have townhomes going on the other side of the road. And then you can look up there in the top where the new gas, we all say the new gas station. The new gas station is in, and all of those commercial businesses went in. In 2015, I'll point out another thing. Mobile was not there in 2015, 2016. Okay, so we've added all of this area and all of this need for service on that south end. So how many people does it take? That's the next thing we talk about. Okay, for a 2,000 square foot residential house, I'm supposed to put 17 people on that scene in order to fight fire effectively. We run with 21 people on duty On average, that's what we got as our score from ISO. So that means that we've got a little bit of slack for ambulance calls to be run. So that's why we have the personnel, and we need personnel for those fire stations. So some of our challenges with personnel. So in 2016, we had a thriving volunteer program that had about 30 to 35 people in it. I currently have one. We had a part-time staff that was in place. We had 27 or 28. I have 3. So all of that was on its way out all throughout this time in this distance. Okay? 2020, a lot of people reevaluated their lives and whether they wanted to volunteer. It takes as much time for somebody to volunteer as it does for a professional to do this in the state of Georgia. Part-time staff, we opened it up for 2 years and got no applicants. So we've just moved on and started converting those into full-time people. Long-term absences, this is a very physically demanding job, and I usually have a few people that are hurt all the time. So one bright point in this is that the current labor market is getting better, and because of the city council and the community increasing salaries last April, we have consistently gotten good applicants over the last 2 times that we've gone out for new employees. So things are getting better. So let's go back to my rating again. So you're like, Chief, well, how did you hang on? How did we hang on? We hung on because my staff, because the council supported us, because we put effort into every single one of these points that we could hang on to without doing any of the rest of the things I just showed you. Okay? So you have to make a 90 in order to be a class 1. If you look down there at the community risk reduction portion, we gained a lot of points. It looks like a lot. That's a lot, ladies and gentlemen. You know, we're talking about tenths. That's a lot of effort that went into that. You've probably seen our social media. You've probably seen Josh Teal, our community risk reduction person, out there just doing an awesome job. That's where some of that came from. And you probably remember the newsletter that you probably got back during the late summer, early fall. That goes to everybody in every mailbox in Peachtree City gets that. That gives us points towards ISO, and our foundation did that for us at their own cost. So everybody has pitched in to help us get here and stay here. So what does this all mean? So I kind of skipped this. I already talked about this. So this is just Josh and all our people out there doing the job with our community partners. So we're just so ecstatic to be able to do that for you guys. So what does this all mean? Your insurance for your home is the lowest that you can get it. Class 1 is the lowest class that you can get. So for the city of Peachtree City, we are one of 503 ISO Class 1 departments in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty awesome. So I'm going to go one better. In the state of Georgia, we're one of 24. That's pretty impressive. So to give you an idea, there's 603, 605 fire departments in the state of Georgia. We're one of 24. Okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank the council, the mayor, city management, staff, in all the departments, and the community for all helping us get where we are and stay where we are. It's been an all-out effort by everybody to maintain this, and we look forward to the future. We've got plans, and we just stay the course, and we're going to continue to save money for the citizens and provide excellent service, and we thank you for all that you have done for us. Thank you. So I don't have a nice plaque, but I've got some things for the mayor and council and the city managers. these are shields that go on the front of our helmets. And I think that this is appropriate for them to receive as a gift or award because they have provided protection for all of us throughout this assessment, and their support has been invaluable to us.
Wow.
So I'm going to come up there and give those to you.
All right.
Chief, when's the next assessment?
I know Jasmine's going to say I need to be on mic. Okay, so typically they're here every 4 to 5 years. Because of COVID, we were behind. We should have been assessed probably around 2021. So that's our anticipation. That's why we came before you and asked for the things that we needed to be prepared for the next one.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Other before I walk out then. Okay.
Thank you, Chief. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. My dad would be proud.
Thank you, sir.
Wanna give you two?
No, sorry. I don't have a third hand. Thank you.
One last round of applause. Agenda item 5, public comment.
Good morning, Madam Mayor. We have 8 people signed up to speak. The first person is Mr. Steve Brown.
Yes, it is. Yes.
I hate the stopwatch that you have to put on the taxpayers for being able to speak. It's kind of disgraceful, but I just wanted to put on notice that one thing we're going to be paying attention to when we write columns and newspaper articles is that we had 4 of our current council members who ran as conservative, fiscally conservative candidates. And right now, we've got a council that's excelled at raising the taxes and restricting free speech and public participation. What should we expect from you as a city and as a city council as you prepare for next year's fiscal budget? That's going to be what the focus is going to be on. We graciously approved a SPLOST at your request, and then later found out there were $10 million worth of expenses that weren't included on it. It came out of nowhere. No excuse for that. We've got a recreation commission that the previous council allowed to vacate. They didn't replace any of the positions as the terms expired. You all have continued that. You've got a recreation survey that's out there, but you don't have any input from the citizens through a recreation commission, which we've had for decades. Decades. I don't know why we don't want citizens on these commissions, and I don't know why you don't put anybody on the commission. If you go and look at the county animal shelter, the new one, you think they talked to the animal advocates, the Humane Society, and any other groups? Heck no, they didn't. And they're paying a price for it now. That's the importance of having the public input. That's the importance of taking the criticism and listening to what your citizens have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Excuse me. Excuse me.
The next person to speak is Ms. Sue Reed.
Hi, my name is Sue Reed, and I oversee the Peachtree City Pickleball Club training program. 1 month ago, we had nowhere in Peachtree City, Tyrone, or any place in Fayette County to conduct free beginning training for pickleball. We petitioned the officials of Peachtree City and Tyrone for help in establishing dedicated courts and time to provide training to their residents. Mayor Ed Dial from Tyrone stepped forward and offered us 4 courts on Sundays from 2 to 4, and that lets us train 16 people. Of course, Tyrone residents have priority there. We posted 2 sessions last Friday for the Tyrone training, and within 3 days, we had 63 applicants for only 32 spots. To be honest, I hate to be the one that has to tell 31 people today that we have no room for them to learn something that they really want to learn. The need for pickleball training in Peachtree City is needed now. We ask that you give us the use of 4 courts at Kedron Fieldhouse for 2 hours each week. An email was sent to each of you this past week from our president, Lloyd Smith, asking this exact thing. We can provide training. We have 11 certified coaches that keep up their certification every single year. We have all the training that we need to have. We have all the equipment that we need. We have balls, we have paddles. There is no cost to any of our participants or to the city. We will handle everything. The only thing that we cannot provide are dedicated courts. We cannot do this without your help. So please direct your recreational department to give us 2 hours per week so we can introduce this life-changing sport to more Peachtree City residents. The Kedron Fieldhouse is open 73 hours a week. We only need 2. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next.
The next person to speak is Mr. Lloyd Smith.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm the president of the Pickleball Club, and our general mission statement says, we promote pickleball in and around Peachtree City and Fayette County. To do that, training is an important aspect for us. Sue Reed just talked about opening up 2 sessions of pickleball, and in 3 days, we had over 2 times as many people as that we have slots for. This shows the desire and the need for training in Peachtree City and the surrounding areas. I know that you're working on providing new courts for us, and I know a lot of the ills will be taken care of as soon as these new courts are built. But I do also know that these new courts are down the road. What I don't know is how far. But training can be solved today. It doesn't have to wait for the time down the road. Instead of waiting, training can be solved today. We don't have to wait for some day, another day, or a day down the road. Let's do it today. I need your help to do that. Training is an important aspect. We have so many people looking for training, and we can provide it absolutely free. 2 hours a week at Kedron, that's not a lot to ask for. For the citizens or the people in the pickleball community. We can work with your recreation department to come up with a win-win situation for both Peachtree City and the pickleball residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
The next person to speak is Mr. Joe Campbell.
Hello, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Joe Campbell. I live in the Smoke Rise community here in Peachtree City, and I have this distinct privilege of serving on the board for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Not only does this team bring in business and commerce to Peachtree City, but they also put together and coordinate events that bring the community together, one of which was the recent Hops and Props. And I was fortunate enough to volunteer for this, and as I milled about to nearly 350 people who attended this thing, a question kept coming up because people were having so much fun and enjoying themselves and thinking, wow, we got to do more of this. Kept saying, well, who coordinated? Who put this together? And so it gave me an opportunity to talk a little bit about Tyler's team. If you don't know Tyler, he just recently joined as the director of the Convention Visitors Bureau, so thank you. But the two ladies that work with him, Sarah and Missy, they are a dynamic duo that provides for the city tremendously, and they fly under a radar that we don't notice. So this thing, like I said, was attended by almost 350 people. And they're not just from our community, they came as far as from Alabama and other areas in Georgia. But they were able to gather together about 30 volunteers, many of which came from the city and admin and recreation over there, and even in finance. Chief Murphy, some of your guys volunteered over there. Chief Moon had some presence with her team, which was much appreciated. But they don't get the recognition that they deserve. And as I walked around and I saw how happy people were and enjoying this, and as I get to see the stuff that they're working on and what they're providing for the city, not only again as bringing people in to come and visit our city, but what they do for the community, it struck me that we needed to have a public way to recognize them. So I'm just here to tell that team, Tyler's team, Missy and Sarah, fantastic job. I can't wait to see this. This is already coming back next year. We already know that. They other have some things on the docket as well, because as we're at Hops and Props, they're like, what about Wings and Warbirds? What about this and this and that? And so there's, at a time when division seems to be kind of front and center all the time, this brought our community together. People were happy, they're enjoying themselves. And I will tell you, the majority of them stayed till the very, very end. It wasn't like, oh, we're just gonna leave after an hour or so. They stayed till the end. So they bring a lot to this city. They bring a lot to the community by getting them together. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize them and thank them. And it seems to be kind of a theme today in recognition. So please, I wish they were, Missy and Sarah were here, but they are incredibly busy, so they're off working. But I wanted to recognize Tyler and his team for a fantastic job. And thank you. Thank you so much for what you do for our city.
Wow. Thank you.
Next person signed up to speak is Ms. Rebecca Thomas.
A little shorter than everyone here. I'm Rebecca Thomas, and I live off of Hip Pocket Road. Today I just wanted to talk about the need for a new public splash pad in Peachtree City. And before I delve into that specific request, I just wanted to thank the entire council for first doing this meeting at 9:30 a.m. I'm happy that I get to attend while my kids are at school, so I really, really appreciate that. And I also want to thank you guys for listening to the families in the community when complaints were being filed about the previous picnic park. The new park has been an incredible addition to our community, and I, like a lot of my friends, go there nearly daily. So thank you so much for that. In addition to the park that has been a huge success, I am hoping that we can get a public splash pad put in where the previous all children's park was. Our current splash pad that's over at Glenlock is poor quality, and it includes a fee for entry. Due to the quality and cost of the splash pad, I and many others are left with no choice but to travel to Noonan or to Fayetteville during the summer months. I don't know if any of y'all have grandkids or kids of your own, but if you've gone to Fayetteville splash pad, it is incredible. It is wonderful. It is so fun to go to, but it is far. And our current splash pad, a big issue with it is that since the size of it is so small, there is only a certain number of kids that can fit in it. So along with the user fee, if more kids are coming, you kind of get kicked out at a time limit, where that's not the case over in Fayetteville. And so Fayetteville Splash Pad has free access to all of its users as well as Noonan's. And so I'm just hoping that the City Council can discuss the possibility of creating another family staple similar to Fayetteville's Splash Pad here in Peachtree City. The community loves our new picnic park, and building a splash pad next to Picnic Park I think would be a great addition to keeping Peachtree City family-centric, especially during the summer months when Picnic Park sometimes you can't take your children to play at because it's so hot. So thank you for your consideration, and I really hope to hear future discussions about the new public splash pad.
Thank you. Next.
Next person to speak is Ms. Caroline Bond.
Thank Thank you. Yeah. All right, that's a lot of the same thing that I was going to say. My name's Caroline Bina, and I live off of Macintosh Trail. And I came to ask that the City Council remove the user fees for splash pads. Madam Mayor, I know that you have long been a champion of that, and I feel like with this new 2024 City Council that we finally have the right people in place who are invested in our youngest citizens who will get this done. Charging families to use the splash pad sends the wrong message. It kind of says, we are here, but we don't really want you here. In the past, I've heard an excuse that we need to charge splash pad user fees to deter people from outside our city from coming here to use our splash pads. But I believe all it does is deter our own residents from using our own splash pad. Last summer, I drove to another city every single week so that my kids could play at a splash pad that was newer and nicer and probably twice as big as ours. And I was not the only Peachtree City mom doing that, as has been said. Furthermore, Fayetteville and Noonan each have their own splash pads, and I don't think a large number of them would need or want to come use ours. But if they did, then maybe they'll buy some lunch or fill up with gas or spend some time in Peachtree City, and that is a good thing for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person to speak is Mr. Jason Pohl.
Hi, Jason Pohl, Planterra Ridge. Just want to second the splash pad. Sounds like a great idea. I got a toddler, would love that. Fundamentally, I just wanted to mention when the council was talking about the new agenda process, I think Councilmember Brown and Holland evoked the First Amendment and right to redress, and now Steve Brown mentioned it today. It's funny, I'm standing in front of a microphone in front of you guys. So I just really want to make clear that if you're going to evoke our constitutional rights, be confident that you are actually understanding what you're talking about. I'm here talking to you. And if I want to send an email, I can do that. The mayor has responded to every email I've ever sent about any issue. I can come up here and talk to you guys. If you're voting on something, I can comment on that. So this idea that a small procedural change is stripping away our rights is just silly. I want to thank Councilmember Johnson for her suggestions on the new process. If you got a good idea, 2 other people will agree with it. I don't know how many people sit in meetings all day, but when I have a meeting and somebody else just wants to derail it, it only takes one person, and now we're not even talking about what we were supposed to be talking about. So having a little bit of process where more than one person has to put something on the agenda, that's fine. And last thing I just want to mention is we're a representative democracy. We're not a direct democracy. So I don't need to come here and tell you, here's what you need to talk about, here's what needs to be on the agenda. That's what I elected you to do. And if you do something I don't like, I'll come here and tell you. All right? So that's it. I really just wanted to come harp on that because we have a lot of folks in the community that spend a lot of time hating. And you know, I'm glad to see more folks out here. 9:30 in the morning, it's easier for me. My kid's in daycare. So I just want to end on a positive note. I think you guys are doing a good job. But if you're going to sit on the council and talk about constitutional rights, don't evoke them if you're not actually coming from a place of research and truth. Because here I am, talking to you. First Amendment. How beautiful is that? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Excuse me.
Last person who signed up to speak is Mr. Blake Hayes.
Blake Hayes, I live off of Double Trace Lane. I just wanted to give to start by giving a shout out again to the police department for recently enforcing the school zone on Robinson Road near Booth Middle. I know that's something I personally have asked for in the past. I mean, I doubt that it was because of my email since it was like a year ago, but I appreciate that that's something that's being done and being considered. With that said, there are things that the council should also consider to help the police in that area. The first one, I know I've mentioned it before to the previous council, and I'll bring it up again, is the speed limit in the school zone around Booth Middle. Robinson Road is zoned 40 its entire length, with the exception, of course, of the school zones when they're active. Because of that, and under state law, to drop the speed limit inside the school zone to 25, you have to post a warning sign in advance, and there's not enough distance from the intersection at the end of Robinson Road with State Route 54 to post that warning sign. So that's why the school zone is kind of weird if you've ever driven down Robinson Road on it. It starts right at the intersection with Spear Road, and then it ends at the Methodist Church before you even get to the turnoff for the school that it's on. In my mind, at least, there's a fairly easy solution that I hope council will consider in the future, which would be to reduce the speed limit, even just on that little portion of Robinson Road from Spear Road to the end of it at State Route 54 to 35 miles per hour. Because if you drop it to 35, well, now you're only lowering the speed limit by 10 for the school zone, and you don't need the warning sign under state law. And to clarify the warning sign I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the thing that says school zone speed limit 25, here are the hours. I'm talking about the separate yellow diamond sign that says school zone speed limit ahead. That's the one that's required to be posted 700 feet in advance. The second thing that I hope that the city will consider, whether it's your responsibility or the Board of Education's, I'm not entirely sure, but I think it is the city's, because these are on city roads. In every other city I've ever lived in, including outside of the city at the Stars Mill one, we don't just post the times on these little bitty placards underneath the school zones where someone who's going 40 has a pretty hard time reading to know when this thing is actually in effect. Because I've had several people I've talked to that don't even know what times the school zones are. It is their responsibility to read the signs, yes, but everywhere else that I've ever lived has this fancy invention that is flashing yellow lights that you put on the signs that tell you when it's active. And I really hope that that's something that the city will consider, either directly if it is our transportation department, or reaching out to community partners about the possibility of getting those flashing warning signs so it's school zone 25 when lights are flashing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am, that's it.
Thanks very much. Agenda changes, council?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to recommend that for consent agenda, items A, B, C, and E and F be approved.
Actually, before we get there, agenda changes, did you want to make a change to pull D out of consent? Now would be the time to make that motion, if you'd like.
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to move consent item D out of consent and put it on the new agenda item.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Minutes, April 4th, 2024, regular meeting minutes.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the April 4th, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, and yes, I'll read these into the record. A, fiscal year 2024 budget amendment, Sunset Sounds sponsorship. B, fiscal year 2024 budget amendment and intent to finance police vehicles. C, consider path easement from Peachtree City United Methodist Church. E, consider ADA transition plan submittal to GDOT. And F, Integrity Fusion Stormwater Facility Maintenance Agreement. Can I get a motion?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion on consent items A, B, C, E, and F be approved.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Old agenda items, we have none. New agenda item, from consent agenda, item D, reclassifications and position title changes for Human Resources, CVB, and Finance.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the city manager give us the cost.
Yep. So for human resources, it's a 10% position increase. The balance of the rest of the year is $3,921.90. For a full year, which will be the next fiscal year, it'll be $8,157.55. For the CBB position, which will be paid for out of the CBB fund, not the general fund, 5% position increase. Balance of the year is $1,351. For the full year, it's $2,810.08, which will be next fiscal year. And then for finance, a 5% position increase. Balance of the year is $1,785.14. And then for next fiscal year, for a full year, $3,714.34. So I know, yeah, we just wanted to get that read into the record for you all to vote on.
And these are all within the budget.
Yes, we do not have to do a budget amendment or adjustment, as from vacant positions this year, we can cover this expense.
Thank you, Mr. Interim City Manager.
You are welcome.
Any questions or comments about that? Do you want to make a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion we approve as read.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Public hearings, we have none. Council staff topics. I'd like to start by commending staff on an amazing town hall. I love town halls. And it was staff who conceptualized the event and did all the coordination, coordinated the GDOT and our own engineers to be in a panel discussion format that was so beneficial to everybody in attendance, and there were more than 200 people registered in advance to attend. It was an amazing event, and I was proud of Peachtree City. So thank you, staff, for that. It was amazing. Today's meeting being in the morning, we're going to do it again in May and in June, and I'm hoping this picks up steam as we move forward. May 16th, Thursday morning's meeting will be 9:30, and again, June 20th will be Thursday morning at 9:30, and I hope you'll all come and bring 10 friends. Finally, this is the last meeting for our city manager, Bob Curnow, and I don't want to embarrass you, Bob, but would you mind taking the podium so we can talk at you for a minute? You know, when Bob came here new in early 2023, he brought with him 30 years of municipal government experience. He brought incredible IT experience, cybersecurity, he's a cybersecurity instructor, and just a long list of experience and certifications, and we knew that he would be a good fit and that he would have a lot to contribute to Peachtree City. The first thing you led us on was a comprehensive review of the pay and benefits study that had been visited once before, but not fully implemented. And the revised pay and benefits study that we implemented last April upon your recommendation and your leadership is what has bolstered every department, is what has fully staffed our police department, our fire department, in every department, and we appreciate your incredible efforts in that, just for starters. I know by summer that you had scrubbed all of our budgets, scrubbed every department, met with city leaders, and uncovered $10 million of previously deferred and unidentified maintenance items that needed to be addressed. You had the leadership and courage to bring it to our attention so that we could start fixing what needed to be fixed, and I'll always be grateful. Your IT experience has been invaluable. I know one of the first things we did last year was to approve a purchase of Zen City. This is the software we now use by staff on a regular basis to poll our citizens and get citizen feedback and do all of our surveys, and that has proved to be invaluable. But maybe most of all, you have built a cohesive staff team and a cohesive council team that has been not only willing to work together, but excited and inspired to work together. And we now have a better informed council. We have 2x2 meetings weekly with staff heads in the meetings with us, so that I know now I feel fully informed like never before. You led us on our city's vision of uncompromised excellence, and you have been an amazing leader, mentor, and friend. And all we can say is thank you. So. I know that my fellow city council members would like to say a few words, if you don't mind.
Well, please.
Bob, you've been a good friend as well as a mentor, the way the mayor said that. You've led us through a lot of turbulent times with some levity as well. So because of that, I have a picture that I'd like to show you. I don't know where it's at. I like to consider you and Ted as Laurel and Hardy. But between the two of you, you've given us some good advice and some good jokes. Thank you very much, Ted, and you as well, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll mail that picture to your wife.
Can I go?
Sure.
Bob, I can tell you basically you had 5 strong personalities on this council last year. and you were the lion tamer. You came in and you made sure we stayed on course, stayed on topic, and did the right things for the city. And for that, I'm grateful for. I'm not grateful necessarily because I was the brunt of a lot of your jokes last year, but I took it in good spirit because, quite honestly, I was new to the council last year. You basically taught me how to be a productive councilman, how to do it the right way and get in, get things done, vote with your compatriots when needed to, and vote against your compatriots when needed to. For that, I appreciate that. You told me the do's and don'ts as a new councilman, and I'll tell you, those were very invaluable. Do these, but don't mess with these. So I was very pleased to hear that. And over the year, you became a good friend. I'm going to miss you, but I know that you put a strong team together that you left behind. The guy to my right and the lady sitting at the seat over here, strong individuals that'll lead this city into the future. And for that, I'm grateful for the cities and the citizens of this city. Thank you, and the best of luck, truly the best of luck going forward.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
I'll go. I think the biggest thing that I have to regret is that I'm not going to be able to tap into all of the experience that you brought to the position. I only hope that Justin has a direct link to you anytime he has a question, and I think that that has already been established. We do have two fine people moving up and stepping into positions to take, fill in the void that you're leaving behind as you depart, but we really do wish you all the best.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
I think it's only been about a year and a half, or less than a year and a half since you've been here. I've only been on council 3.5 months. So I was able to experience the change that Bob brought first as a citizen. And I will say it was noticeable. You could tell by the community outreach and the change in the amount of social media and newsletters and information that was going out. And it's as someone who is a citizen and being able to experience that, I truly appreciate all that you have done in that capacity. And not just that, he's also done our Peachtree City 101 at the town hall this week. I was able to speak to some of the volunteers who came and how they've just appreciated all the information and how eye-opening it's been to go and sit through these meetings and really get a look at what our city does and what it looks like behind that curtain. And I appreciate all of the outreach and the team building that you have put in such a great effort to build here in Peachtree City. It is evident very easily just by talking to people on staff. I will say I do not know if I've ever heard a negative comment about Bob Curnow. So thank you for all of your work. We are sad to see you go, and we truly wish you the best.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Well, Mayor and Council, you kind of put me on the spot. I wasn't prepared to have a closing speech, but luckily I always travel with about 73 PowerPoint slides. So for the next 2.5 hours, I'd like to explain. I'm just kidding. But one thing, I am honored and humbled at the same time to have had an experience here at Peachtree City. It's been amazing. I have had opportunities, Mayor, as you mentioned, to work in several other organizations, but what I have not had an opportunity is to work with some of the most talented and dedicated women and men of this organization. And I firmly believe that you're going to be in good hands going forward with the dedicated staff. They've been here, they understand their roles and their responsibilities. You've heard earlier about the public safety accolades and the accreditation, and I'm here to tell you that those standards that are being met by this staff are unparalleled. Having had opportunities to work in other organizations, I can tell you that other organizations strive to be where Peachtree City is, and that's an amazing accomplishment. What you didn't hear are the financial awards that we win for financial accounting and for budgeting, and you didn't hear about the communication awards that we win. We've talked about those through other meetings and other means. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. Well, but it's all a testament to the dedication of this staff. My responsibility here, the humbling responsibility as the city manager, and it's a tough job, but I've always said from the day that I first got here that I cannot do this without staff. I cannot do this job by myself, the city manager's responsibility is to ultimately be that person making the decisions, but you don't make those decisions in a vacuum, and you cannot make those decisions in a vacuum. So I just want to thank my staff for all of the support and all of the conversations and the humor and the jokes and the fun that we've had. And I'm going to miss all of you, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you for everything, Bob.
Thank you.
We will be adjourning in a minute to a brief executive session in another room, and then we will have light refreshments in here to chat with Bob, honor him, and wish him well. So with that, do we have executive session today?
We have other council topics.
Oh, council staff topics, so sorry.
Yep. Can I get the slides put up that I had sent? Fantastic. Basically, it's going to be a short and sweet discussion about ordinances 1203 and 1204. Those are the administrative variance ordinances. And if you'll go to the next slide. Basically, ordinance 1203 is decides what kind of variance you have, regular or administrative. 1204 actually goes into the details of what it is. And what I'm concerned about is I'm bringing this up because I want this to go on a city council agenda so that we can discuss it in detail. Today's not the day to talk about this in detail. Today is the day to get this approved to go on the agenda in the future. But as you can see by the issues up there, that some of these are allowed, this new administrative variance allows us to do things that aren't necessarily in the best interest of the land planning and the zoning. For instance, we can change the setbacks by not to exceed 50%. So if you've got a setback of 50 feet, you can go 25 feet into it with just an administrative variance. And it goes on to say you can decrease the setbacks by 25%. You can decrease the parking spaces by 25% on the commercial side. You can increase the fence heights up to 25%. And basically, this is all done administratively through a 3-member committee of the zoning administrator, the city manager, and 1 city council member. To me, this is something that shouldn't be done but here on the dais, any kind of variance. Go to the next slide. Just to give you an idea of how this annual variances come up, over the last 5 years, or 4.5 years, we've looked at this. The administrative variance went in December of 2021. So I looked 2 years back and 2 years forward to see what's been going on. Pretty much the variances that come to the council are pretty solid. They're pretty straightforward, 10 to 14 every year. But you look at the administrative variances, before this new ordinance went in 2021, there was only 3 in the 2-year period before. Now look at how many they're going on. You've got 18 in the first 2 years and 3 so far this year. So we're looking at a very big increase in the administrative variances. So go to the next slide. And we have specific zoning ordinances and detailed land plans for Peachtree City. We've had them for decades, and they've done us very well. We've got a beautiful city here. Since the passage of this in December of 21, there's been a large increase in administrative variances. So pre-passage, as I said, it was only 3. Post-passage is 21. It's in a 2-year period. Why are we having a large increase? There are many issues that need to be discussed by this council. This needs to be investigated to determine the cause of the large increase in administrative variances and make appropriate adjustments. Next slide. So I'd like to make a motion that the administrative variance ordinances 1203 and 1204 be added to an agenda, as an agenda item in the next council meeting on May the 2nd, 2024.
We really don't do motions during council staff topics, but.
Okay,
but if I remember the way the ordinance that was passed at the last meeting, You just need two other council members to say, I agree, I'd like
Okay,
to see
so
this as
I
well."
need a consensus then and not a motion.
Correct.
Thank you. I need a consensus to see if we can put this on the agenda for May the 2nd, 2024. I need two people to join me so that we can have a good, long, hard discussion on the administrative variance.
I think the point would be, do we all decide it's worth spending staff time on? You know, we need to figure out if there's direction for the city manager to spend the staff time on. To be honest with you, Clint, I didn't know this was coming up today. I think you have a lot of really good information here, and I would love to sit down with you prior to giving staff any direction. I would like an opportunity to hear more about this from you. Can we agree to sit down and meet?
Well, certainly we'll sit down and meet, but I think that the issue today is, can we put it on the topic? And that gives us the time to sit down and talk.
I think the issue today is, do we want to direct staff to spend some time on it, get us some data, correct?
No.
I'm looking for two people on this council to join me to put it on the council agenda. And yes, there's going to be a little bit of staff time, but there'll be discussions among the five of us before the next council meeting.
I'm in total agreement that this needs to go on the next agenda.
Can I just ask a quick question? If it's on the next agenda, we would be voting on what at that meeting? What the solution would be?
I think
Or how would it be on the agenda? Like something that we're still working on in the future? I know like a workshop has been mentioned, or is it you want a solution between now and the next meeting as to what this new ordinance would be?
As I said in the presentation, that we need to put it on to investigate and to determine and discuss amongst all of us on the dais. Again, that transparency that you had talked about,
Yeah.
that's what I want. I want it on the dais to discuss. Now, do we need to make a decision at that meeting? No. Maybe the answer is, let's do a workshop. Let's do something else. But I think we need to get it up there so that it can be discussed on the dais.
Can I interject one thing?
Sure.
If it is something that council wants to pursue as voted on at the next meeting, you'll be initiating a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, which then goes to the planning commission, public hearings, and so forth. So that would be the action that would be taken at the next meeting. But at this point, the way I understand it, you're just trying to have a discussion on this topic among council.
Absolutely. I'm trying to get it on the agenda. I gave a few ideas, a few pieces of data, and the ideas of what I think may be looked at, but just getting it on the agenda is following the new rules that we have, the new policies we have.
Clint, be
that
quiet
we
for a
need
minute.
3.
Just give me a minute.
Yep.
Just don't keep talking.
I answered the question, the counselor.
I was going to bring up what Ted brought up. You can't vote on anything until it's gone through the planning commission because there's a change. You bring up some good information, but I think you need to remember it's also going to be staffed. There's going to be a cost. We've always talked about when we make changes, there's a staff time and staff cost to it. So you got to look at that cost as well. And I'd like to make sure we're going to not lose that opportunity in our discussions, that we know what the total impact is. Like you, we've said several times, I'd like to know all the details about what changes are going to come up.
Mm-hmm.
So if we bring it up and we want to discuss it, that's fine. But we got to make sure we have all the information to make a smart, intelligent decision.
In general, I agree with what you're saying. In this specific case, though, I think the information is very easily determined. Our city manager was able to interim city manager was able to get that information very quickly. And so it's not like we're going to be doing lots and lots of time by staff to do this. This is a small one. This is not a deep dive.
The information that he gave us was the numbers.
That's correct.
How many there were each year in each category.
That's correct.
But he didn't tell us how much it cost.
No, not yet. Those are some of the things that are going to have to be, as I said, investigated on this. What kind of cost is it going to be to make these changes? And I would say it's very little of staff time to determine the cost of what it will take for staff to do this work.
I think one of the points of the ordinance change that we made last time in bringing items to council staff topics was that would give us an opportunity to talk to one another, to keep the dialogue going, to kind of get our ducks in a row, do some investigation, figure out what we want, and then it can come up I really would like an opportunity to hear more from you and sit down together with you. I would like to see it on May 2nd, council staff topics. By that time, I'll know what the deal is, what's broken, what isn't working.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to speak.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
To clarify, it was brought up that we can bring something up during council staff topics the day of, and that it would be determined whether or not we were going to put it on the next agenda.
Correct.
The idea was to not have all of the discussions behind the scenes before it gets brought to the public dais. I'd like to read this statement.
Of course.
Thanks, Frank. I believe the administrative variance ordinance sections 1203 and 1204 need to be revised or possibly rescinded completely. I've wanted the revision since last summer when this issue was addressed by Councilman Holland. I have several issues with the current ordinance as it's written. It establishes a fast-track application for a homeowner to apply for either approval for a zoning violation built by a former owner, or up to a 50% reduction of the rear setback on their property. That fact alone is the equivalent of negating the mandatory compliance with the rear setback for 13,000 residential units and properties in the city. A decrease of up to 25% of a setback, front, side, or rear, if the property adjoins a publicly owned property and there is no other location for a proposed building expansion. A decrease of up to 25% in the minimum number of parking spaces required by the parking ordinance, or an increase in the maximum height of a fence or a wall with certain conditions. Unfortunately, as it is written, Section 1204 allows for a 3-person committee to approve far too much. I also object to any requirement that an applicant must obtain letters of approval from their neighbors. It's unfair to either require or allow a neighbor to have the power to either help approve or to help deny a variance. I believe City Council should retain that responsibility. Additionally, I attended an administrative variance meeting yesterday for a property I felt fell into Category C because it adjoins a city-owned greenbelt. That would maximize the setback reduction to just 25%. The planning director interpreted the ordinance differently and justified that, as written, the ordinance used the word "or" in such a way that the applicant was permitted to apply under Section A or under Section C. Section A allowed for a 50% reduction of the rear setback. I disagreed, but was outvoted by the planning director and the city manager. The lack of clarity in the ordinance is the problem. The inability for us to agree on the classification of the application indicates a fundamental issue with the ordinance itself. Furthermore, when it was modified in December of 2021, there was a claim that the number of variance public hearings would be reduced as some applicants would qualify for an administrative variance instead. The statistics showing the number of variances by council prior to the ordinance in 2020 and 2021 were 10 and 14 respectively, and after the ordinance was changed, we saw 11 and 13 in 2022 and 2023. Those numbers show no reduction at all. There were 24 in the 2 years prior and 24 in the 2 years after the ordinance was changed. The number of administrative variants, however, was 3 in the 2 years prior versus 18 in the 2 years after the ordinance was changed. That is a significant increase. In fact, it is 6 times as many. The prediction that the last ordinance change would save staff time was wrong. The last changes to this ordinance in December 2021 were a vast overreach that is far too liberal in granting latitude away from compliance with our zoning setbacks, fence height, and parking spaces required. Additionally, the drawings in the application I reviewed yesterday had other inconsistencies between the plat drawing and the narrative they submitted. It claimed only the deck stairs would infringe into the setback, but showed a major section of the proposed new deck extending into the setback. It didn't clearly indicate exactly what would be built into the setback or how far. In contrast, I believe that having a full public hearing with our elected officials acting in their quasi-judicial capacity when holding the hearing allows them to ask specific questions that cannot be asked the way the current process is being done. From a legal standpoint, I question the advisability of the Director of Planning and Development being part of the approval process after they have had numerous conversations with applicants, guiding them through the application process? How does that comply with the quasi-judicial hearing requirement for a variance? For all the reasons I outlined, the ordinance truly needs to be revised or rescinded. I want this on the next agenda. Thank you.
Comments?
Madam Mayor, I've got a few more things I have to say. Basically, I'm following the rules that was set up in the last meeting. I am following the new policy, which says you need to bring it forward, not in a motion, but a consensus, okay? We don't know what the cost of this is, and for anything that's put on the agenda ahead of time, we don't know the cost, but we will find that out. So I would suggest that this be approved through a consensus here on the city council of at least 3 of us to put it on the agenda, because maybe we can use this as an example of what does it take and how much cost is it going to be to follow through on a small change like this. Obviously, I think the counselor is right. This may come out that we need to send this off to the Planning Commission after we have our discussion. But I think today I'm following the rules, following the policy, following the ordinance. I need a consensus on whether or not we can put this on the next agenda.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
I'd like to see if we have a consensus of 3. If
Well,
we don't,
let's get our let's
okay.
have council comments.
Nope. Go ahead.
According to our new ordinance, does it have to be on the next agenda, or we can, I mean, this is council staff topics, we can figure out, is that enough time if we put it on a future agenda? Is it that it has to be the next one?
It doesn't specifically state.
I didn't think so. It doesn't have to be the next one. How much, is there an amount of time that would be a good amount of time if we put this on a future agenda? Is the next one?
Well, so the question from staff is going to be, what do you want to change? Like that's going to be our question. Is staff's going to do whatever the 5 of you decide to do, but if we're putting it on the next agenda, staff's going to need to, or whatever agenda we put it on, staff's going to need to know, and then if it's got to go to the Planning Commission, it's got to go through them before you all can vote on it. What are the text changes you want to make? So that's going to be what the actual action is, and nothing is. Right now, I'm just hearing you want to have a discussion, which is being had right now.
I support that.
But I did submit I guess it was a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago, I submitted text changes, and it went to everybody, including the people on this dais, and also to the attorney and the city manager, which was Bob at the time. So those are some of the ideas that I had in making changes on that particular 1204. So you have seen those ahead of time. Now, maybe there's more, and that's the reason for the consensus on discussion, because maybe more changes will come out once we all get to see what we need to do, and then it'll be sent off to you. And from there, we can make a decision whether or not it goes to Planning Commission or it comes back on the dais.
I think it has to go to the Planning Commission.
Right.
It's not a if or.
But
Because you're making the change in the.
But the vote, whenever this appears on an agenda, the vote will be to initiate a text amendment, and then that starts the process.
That has to go to
Correct.
planning.
Zoning
That's what I
procedures
need.
law.
We need to
And we
get
don't
that
know what we're all
part
going to
done.
ask for or want on the change until we have it in a correct format as an agenda item under new business.
I don't disagree.
Could you repeat what you just said, Mr. Meeker?
When the time comes, if a majority of council says, yes, we want to change this, it's going to be a vote to initiate a text amendment of the zoning ordinance for the changes that you all agree, or at least the majority of you agree on, to move forward through the process.
Right.
It then gets referred to Planning Commission. There are notice requirements for that, notice requirements for the public hearing before council, like any other text amendment to the zoning ordinance. So, to the extent that there's already a red line version of the changes that at least one person's interested in, those can be vetted, or, I mean, we can take that as a starting point. Staff can look at them, and then if there are issues, either from planning, administration, or legal, we can make those, but ultimately, you guys can debate those changes or what other changes you want to send for the process. I don't see it as being overly complicated.
Nope.
So yeah, if that's your starting point, then yes, we can have that on next agenda or a future one, and then it can be discussed and voted on to start the process.
To start the process.
From that meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say, even though maybe some of us weren't notified today, for me, it doesn't come as a shock. I know how my fellow council members have felt on this. I think that there's some good information here, and I think it's worth a discussion.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank you, council.
Sure. Any other council staff topics?
No problems.
Yes, ma'am.
Bring it.
I have another issue I'd like to bring up. It's regarding the need for a resolution that Peachtree City is not a sanctuary city. Since being elected and sworn in as a Peachtree City councilman, I have wanted to address a serious matter that potentially threatens the safety and security of every citizen in Peachtree City. I believe we, as the governing authority of Peachtree City, have a duty and an obligation to our citizens to declare that we are not a sanctuary city. This can be done by explicitly stating our position on immigration enforcement and cooperation with federal immigration authorities. This can be done through a resolution, an ordinance, or a public statement by the city's leadership. The specifics may vary depending on the city's policies and practices, but the declaration should be made, and it should be made clear that Peachtree City will not limit our cooperation with federal immigration agencies and will not prohibit local law enforcement from inquiring about or enforcing immigration laws, and that we will not prevent the detention of individuals based solely on their immigration status. Non-sanctuary cities declare that they will not restrict their police officers from sharing information or with assisting federal immigration authorities. I think the Peachtree City Council should mandate that our officers cooperate with federal authorities in all immigration-related matters. As we make our declaration on these issues, we need to clearly communicate our declaration to our citizens, as well as to all local law enforcement agencies, including the Fayette County Sheriff's Office, Coweta County Sheriff's Office, the Fayetteville Police Department, and other federal immigration authorities. In doing so, we will ensure clarity and consistency in Peachtree City's approach to immigration. We all know that Peachtree City is a planned community, that it has historically supported the safety and security of its citizens, embraced a commitment to education and good schools, and fostered a high quality of life through a commitment to maintaining our green space. The state of Georgia does not embrace sanctuary cities, yet many cities do, and they are suffering because of it. On March 6, 2024, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones clearly stated the need for HB 301 to be passed by both the Georgia House and Senate to bolster enforcement of Georgia's existing law against sanctuary cities by rescinding sovereign immunity and immediately cease state funding for local governments that engage sanctuary policies. Our Lieutenant Governor made that statement following the tragic murder of Laken Riley in Athens in February. Lieutenant Governor Jones pointed out that the Athens-Clarke County on March 6, 2024, when he said, Athens-Clarke County, and I quote, Athens-Clarke County local officials failed to protect the greatest asset that their county has, the students at the University of Georgia. Instead, they favored a radical agenda that puts the interests of illegal immigrants ahead of the citizens of Athens-Clarke County. They, along with Joe Biden and Washington Democrats, who have fought to open our borders to an invasion from illegal immigrants, are responsible for every action by every illegal immigrant they've allowed to live freely in our communities. As part of our ongoing commitment to protect Georgians, we are taking a stand against those who attempt to implement sanctuary policies that violate the law and harbor criminals, unquote. Sadly, HB 301 did not clear the House and Senate prior to the end of our legislative session. That means that we need to protect our own citizens. I believe that everyone currently sitting on the Peachtree City Council truly supports the safety and security of our citizens. If non-government organizations, also known as NGOs, bring illegal immigrants to Peachtree City, it potentially endangers every citizen. As someone whose mother was brutally murdered in 1977, I can tell you that the belief that it will never happen to you or your family disappears in an instant. And like Laken Riley's family, I've had to live with the heartache and tragedy for the rest of my life. The hotels in Peachtree City are close to housing, senior living, and public schools. We do not have public transportation, Illegal immigrant squatters are destroying Atlanta. Supporting illegal immigrants is bankrupting many cities across America. Not $1 of our city budget should be spent to support illegal immigrants. We have a legal obligation to protect our citizens that can be achieved by taking decisive action now. I support legal immigration. I do not support illegal immigration. With over 10 million illegal immigrants entering the United States in the last 3 years, we need to protect ourselves. Peachtree City needs to declare that we will not limit our cooperation with federal immigration agencies. We will not prohibit our police department from inquiring about or enforcing immigration laws, and we must make it completely clear to every member of the Peachtree City Police Force Department that they must enforce this policy to protect our citizens. We will not prevent the detention of individuals based solely on their immigration status. We will support all federal immigration laws. We need to declare that Peachtree City is not a sanctuary city. I think we need to call a special session so this issue can be discussed and approved by the Peachtree City as an agenda item. We need to do this now. Truth be told, Peachtree City needed to do this 3 years ago. The threat to our citizens and our security is real. Our citizens rely on us to protect them. We need to act. To that end, I hereby request, as opposed to making it as a motion, that we place this issue on our next agenda and pass a resolution to declare that Peachtree City is not a sanctuary city. And I have this, I'll enter this into the minutes. Thank you.
Council?
Support that.
It was my understanding that we are not a sanctuary city.
Yeah, I have a quick question if I can. Clint and I just went to a training, and during that municipal law class, this kind of came up, and they said there's something, and maybe staff can answer this question, where there's some paperwork that the city fills out yearly where there's a question declaring whether we are a sanctuary city or not. Does anyone on staff, is anyone aware of that?
We're not allowed to be a sanctuary city.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does our city currently, if worst case scenario something would happen, how does our city currently respond then?
Well, I'll let the chief answer, but we cooperate with all matters. Fayette County Sheriff's Department, which houses the inmates, cooperates with all federal agencies when it comes to immigration issues. I know that there are some cities that have directed staff to, I don't know if I want to say look the other way, but maybe not be as strident in their enforcement. But I've never heard it. Would have jumped up and down from a legal standpoint if I had heard that here in Peachtree City. But Chief, are you aware of any I know there is a certification form or something we have to sign every year, isn't there? I thought there was something, I don't know, but.
Resolution won't work.
Ted, I've heard, this is a rumor, but I've heard that when individuals come into Peachtree City and get pulled over for some kind of offense, whether it be drugs or having speeding or whatever, if they're not from Peachtree City, they laugh at us. They said, I'll be out here and, by the close of the day because whatever the reason they give them. And the police officer takes out his badge and says, no, you're in Peachtree City and we don't do that here. I mean, isn't that what you've heard, Chief? You're in Peachtree City, we're stopping you, boom.
Let me phrase it this way. In Fayette County, we have a very strong judicial system, a lot of community support for us enforcing the laws. We do have people that come from outside the city to commit crime here. Say if they, I hate to say Atlanta, if they get arrested in Atlanta, it's customary that they get released on their own recognizance. They're out before the officer finishes their paperwork, and they'll put an ankle monitor on them, say if they're in there for a murder charge. In Fayette County, it doesn't work that way. When my officers actually effect an arrest, they go over to the county jail, and a lot of times for the more serious crimes, they're not going to get a bond, and they're going to stay in jail until they go see the judge. And we have a reputation that we still enforce the rule of law, and our judges are very strong and supportive with us, and that if you commit crimes in Peachtree City, and if a jail sentence is warranted, they're going to give it to you. So we do have that reputation. If you commit a crime in Peachtree City, and we catch you and we take you to jail, you're not gonna get out on your own recognizances before my officers finish their paperwork. That is true. Did that
Thank
answer
you,
your
Chief.
question?
Yes, it does.
I also think the jail is pretty stringent in terms of letting folks know, ICE know if there's somebody here who's,
Our current sheriff's department is not what's called a 287G, which has an ICE component and deputies trained specifically in that. But yes, they do cooperate with federal authorities and let them do their investigations as need be. I came from Gwinnett County, the city of Suwanee before. It used to be a 287G. They had a change in sheriffs. He removed the program. So which means they no longer cooperated with federal authorities. But here in Fayette County, we all still cooperate and do what we should be doing.
Madam Mayor, I would say that as long as if we don't know what paperwork we're supposed to have, that's one thing, but if we have all the right paperwork, you know, I think we're fine.
Now, we do not have a mechanism as a municipal police department. If I have a casual encounter with someone on the street and I find out they're an illegal alien, I don't have a way to get that person to jail. I have to have a crime to take them to jail. We're not federal authorities and Ted and I would have to work a lot of those things out. There's certain things we can enforce, certain things we cannot. Now, if they commit a crime and then we get them to the jail and they're illegal, well, that's a different story. There's a mechanism for screening and going through the process, but my officers can't just walk up to somebody and say, you know, do you have your green card? Are you illegal or something of that nature? And if they say no, we really don't have a mechanism for dealing with that person, if you will.
Is that per state law?
It's state, it's federal. There's certain things that go, there's a lot of layers of bureaucracy in between all of those things. But it's not uncommon for us to deal with people who are illegal immigrants who are victims of crime and those sorts of things. And we handle them like we do the other citizens when they're a victim. You know, we're here to provide service to all.
Well, I think all of us agree with what Suzanne said, but I'd like to make sure we have a way to do it properly.
Yes, sir.
There is another component to what I was talking about, though, and that is the financial component of, as a city, we're not going to expend funds to support illegal immigrants in our city. That's what's actually also factoring into the deterioration of an awful lot of other cities that are expending so many funds to house and deal with illegal immigrants that they're having to cut their police department and other departments, where it's really cutting into their budget and ability to actually run their entire city. I don't want that to happen, and I think the best thing to do is just come out with a resolution saying, you know, for everyone to know, we're not a sanctuary city and we're not gonna expend money to support illegal immigrants. And then there's the law enforcement component.
But as the people that approve the budget, we won't approve anything that's in the budget to do that.
Yes, but things have a way of sneaking up on you, Frank.
Okay, I would disagree.
It is true that once you take a person, say, into custody, so to speak, you are responsible for their housing, feeding them, medical expenses, and all those sorts of things. So I can see where in those cities it is a terrible drain on their budgets that wasn't anticipated. But
We don't have to fund any NGOs.
not that I'm aware of.
no, but that's, you're talking about an inmate charge in
Yes.
that instance.
That's different.
That's,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's housing, but I understand your point.
Ted, I've got
It's housing not of their choosing.
3 hots and a cot.
I've got a question maybe you can answer and maybe the chief can also get involved. Is it going to do any damage to us as a city if we pass a resolution saying simply, we're not a sanctuary city? It may not do anything good, but is it going to do any damage if we actually pose that?
It's a public policy decision that you have to make as a council, sir.
And it's going to be just a resolution, which obviously all resolutions can be undone by another council and all of that stuff. So it's not an ordinance, it's a resolution of.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's a resolution saying that the city is going to continue following the law.
In essence, that's what it
I mean,
says.
that's the way I view it.
Correct.
I see no legal implications. I'd have more implications if there was a resolution to declare the city as a sanctuary city.
Yeah, no,
That
we're
would
looking
never
at,
do that.
we're looking
Yeah,
at
that
following
would
the
be-
law and making sure
there
the
would be
citizens know
some
we're following that law.
Legal issues that I would have with that kind of a resolution. But the resolution that's being proposed is basically one that says we're gonna continue following the law.
Exactly. Thank you.
What's the problem?
What do you want?
I would support putting that on to an agenda item in the future.
I'll be happy to write it as a resolution.
Ms. Johnson, Mr. Distin?
I would say this is where, we just talked about administrative variances. That one doesn't come as a shock. I came into this meeting, and today is the very first time that this topic was brought up. So where maybe I've been able to hear more about that other topic, I would say, please don't interrupt. I would say this is one thing that I've learned since coming on council is something will sound like a really good idea, and I will say, that sounds like a great idea. And with this, I would say, this sounds like a good idea. But I would like a little bit of time to educate myself. When I did ask a question earlier about, are there other cities who have done this? The answer was no, right? You didn't know of any
I don't
other
have a
cities?
list.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they've done it.
And so, are there unintended consequences? That would be a question. But I mean, of course, I'm like, I don't see where we, sustaining the law sounds like a problem. But I'm like, do I feel comfortable at this moment making this decision with the amount of information I have? I don't know, just because this is the first time I heard it today.
Mr. DiStadio?
I think I'd quote what Mr. Holland told me when we were looking at the other ordinance. Is this a problem looking for a solution, or is this a solution looking for a problem? If we don't have a problem, I would say let's just drop it. But if we have a problem, I support it.
So
Can we ask?
So where do you stand on that, Mr. DiStadio?
I would say I would not do anything now. I would make sure that there is a problem.
Can we ask? Have we had any problems? Sorry to make you get back up, Chief Moon.
You can use the exercise, Chief. No offense,
Thank
but
you for that, sir.
Oh,
I
there you
have
go,
lost a
Frank.
few, by the way.
Everybody tonight.
Insulting our police chief.
As Mr. Meeker has already stated, we follow the law, and so does the Sheriff's Department, so we have not seen an issue in our jurisdiction.
Okay.
I'd like to add one thing, that based on the ordinance change that got made last council meeting, it's completely open to bring something up during council staff topics and ask that it be added to the next agenda.
You're correct. You're
Okay.
absolutely correct.
So if you want more information, let's add it to the agenda, do research for 2 weeks. We can always choose what we do when we meet together at the next city council meeting.
I would say, yeah, I appreciate that we are discussing this up here, and I feel like it does do that it gives us more time. I mean, if by putting it on the next agenda item, or the next agenda, it doesn't mean that we're voting for or against. So if you guys want to put it on the next one, that I will support that. And I will do as much information. This is not an indication of whether I would feel comfortable supporting it or not, which I don't think is a decision that we've ever just said that we would be making at this time. But that's fine. It does seem like there's some urgency with Councilwoman Suzanne. I'm not sure what that is for, but we can have those discussions and see if this is merited at our next meeting.
All right.
Good. It's on the council.
So just so I'm clear, the resolution itself will be on the next agenda, or no?
We're gonna have a discussion,
Discussion
but I
at the
may
next-
write a rough draft of a resolution.
Yeah, got it.
So I can get with you in the meantime.
Any other council staff topics?
And Madam Mayor, I'd like to just make a comment. I think these are two examples of we should track a little bit to see how much staff time and cost it is. It will help us in the future to eliminate the issues of staff time and cost. So if we can track these, Mr. Interim.
What do you
City
mean by
Manager,
that?
Tracking the amount of time and effort that it takes for the staff to just put together these two simple ones on administrative variance and on a potential resolution. And I think it would serve us very well to say, wow, even little things, it takes a lot of time. Or maybe the answer will come back, well, we're able to get it done in a day, and that kind of thing. So I think it's good if you can do that, just get an understanding of what it takes and how much it costs.
Yeah, I can track, we'll do it. I think if y'all are good with that, we'll do it, and,
That's fine.
the interpretation will be subjective.
Of course.
Of course. Yes.
Any other council
Thank you,
staff
Justin.
topics?
Not unless you want to readdress the splash pad issue.
Let's take it offline. I mean, we've heard from citizens. We're planning another retreat, I hope this summer. Reprioritization as a group, and I think it should come up.
I can support that.
Do we have executive session?
We do, to discuss pending or threatened litigation.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adjourn to executive session
For.
for
Pending or threatened
pending
litigation.
or threatened litigation.
Can I ask a question before we go to that motion? Since we have a celebration for Bob, is there any way to do the celebration for Bob and then convene? Because, I mean, there's,
Actually, we've already made arrangements to do the executive session in the executive conference room so that
Okay,
people can
never
stay in here.
I have a motion.
I'll second that
I have a
motion.
motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? We are in executive